Well, welcome back. We made it through July without a meeting for the first time in a couple of years, and thanks to you and keeping everything running smoothly. Here we are in August already for our workshop meeting, and we'll begin with the opening exercises. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and please be seated. Stacy, take the roll.
John Cassiano, Willard Delacour,
Here.
Joseph Fatsener, Todd Hernandez,
Here.
Becky Height. Here. Lauren Hunsiker. Here. Todd Leiser.
Here.
Rachel Scheffler. Here. Jennifer Cenobitis. Here.
Thank you. And we'll move into approval of the agenda, which is in front of us, and I don't think we have any last minute changes.
No, there was an update to a policy that was already listed, which we'll talk about later.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by
So moved.
Mr. Scheffler,
Second.
second by Mr. Reiser. You guys want to go, so let's go.
I was waiting.
All right. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Welcome again to our August workshop meeting, and I don't see anybody in the audience this evening, so unless our constable would like to have courtesy of the floor, welcome. Thanks for being with us tonight. And we'll move into curriculum and building issues. First item is, I think, a recurring thing, Center for Humanistic Change. Yeah.
It is. So we are required to have a student assistance program, K through 12, which we do, and we work with a community partner. In our case, it has been the Center for Humanistic Change will be our liaison for the 22-23 school year. They have been for some time. They do require a letter of agreement and a letter of confidentiality, both which are attached to your agenda, and it is a routine item with no changes.
Any comments or questions? Okay, now we'll take action in 2 weeks. Next is PCCD grants with Troy. Dr. Cisneros.
All right, Act 55 of 2022 provides $190 million in grant funding to support schools eligible for mental health and physical security initiatives. Of that amount, Northwestern Lehigh is anticipated to receive approximately $132,000 to be used for safety and security improvements. The grant application process will be overseen by the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, PCCD, which has been the same for previous safety and security grants in prior years. We're asking for the board's approval to apply for the grant. We've included a list of safety and security enhancements we intend to use the funds for based on our physical and safety security assessments that we conducted in 2021. That is in your executive content, not available for board. If you have questions about that specifically, I'd ask you to wait for executive session for those items. But if you have questions about the grant, I'll be glad to take them now.
This is just to approve applying for the grants that we will take action on in 2 weeks. Any questions for Dr.
Is it two grants for the same amount? Because there's two different listed here. You mentioned safety and security. There's a mental health grant here.
Yep, so of the $190 million, there's actually two different grants. So there's a mental health side of things, and then there's a physical safety and security. Of the physical safety and security, it's just the 132. There is an additional 132 approximately at play for the mental health initiatives, which we'll be talking about with the board at a future meeting.
Okay, so you have a plan here with the safety security one. There's not a plan yet for the mental health one.
Yeah, the mental health one requires several other steps the state is asking us to do in preparation for that one. So it's not time right now for us to present it to you.
Thank you.
And timing's okay to wait 2 weeks to approve the application?
For this grant, yes. And so we're asking for it in 2 weeks instead of taking them both together because we are experiencing supply chain issues like you imagine. So everybody got money. And so everybody's going to be buying things. And so we have everything lined up where we can move on some of these enhancements and then get our foot in the door first. That way, we could get them within this fiscal calendar year. This money has to be expended in the 2022-23 school year. There is no rollover, so we need to get this done this year.
If I could just add one thing, the one thing that Dr. Snovic mentioned we have to wait for the mental health, they are administering some sort of survey and you are supposed to determine what you spend it on based on the survey results. And so they just released the survey August 1st. So as soon as we go through the survey and figure out, we will bring you back a plan for the mental health as well.
But you can do the survey before you get approval for your grant, right?
Now, the survey was released, August 1st, and the grants are both due August 31st.
But I mean, you can do the survey
Yes.
now before we
Yeah.
approve you applying. for
Yes.
it. Yeah, okay. Okay, any more questions? We'll look at this in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Welcome.
Next item, we do have an item 2.03 that we added for enrollment and class size updates. Mrs. Holman?
Sure. So Stacey, you can open that. This was what it was yesterday. It changed since yesterday. So I wrote on this slide because I wanted you to see the difference between what it was when we approved the final budget, because it has significantly changed since we approved the final budget, and that will become important with the two areas that are highlighted in yellow. So since we ended school, Weisenberg Elementary has received 40 new enrollments, 1 disenrollment, which is extraordinarily high number of enrollments and not a lot of disenrollments. 2 students returning from charter, 6 students returning from non-public. Northwestern Elementary has, since the end of school, received 20 new enrollments and no disenrollments, 1 returning from charter, 2 returning from non-public schools. So the numbers that are on the slide that you see are the exact same numbers that were included in the final budget presentation and the sections that I recommended. The 3 things I would like to talk about tonight and bring to your attention tonight, 1 of which the board knows about, and 2 they are aware of, but decisions have not been made, are our 5th grade class sizes. So since the board met publicly last, I did make a decision to add a 3rd 5th grade class at Northwestern Elementary. So you'll see that listed as the August 1st update below. The class sizes that you see there with the sections are what it will be as we added the class at Northwestern. A lot of people have asked why we added it at Northwestern. We have Title I funding at Northwestern Elementary, and we received more Title I funding this school year than we have in previous years. Almost enough to fund a full teacher, probably not a full teacher completely. I don't know if that's one-time funding or it's going to occur every year. So the reason we added it at Northwestern Elementary is, for those of you who don't know, Northwestern Elementary is the only Title I building we have in the district. So the Title I funds can't be spent in any other building other than Northwestern Elementary. So I did make the decision to add a section in 5th grade. If you do recall, that is the grade that we decreased 2 sections of before. So ordinarily we were running at 6 sections. We decreased that to 4. I increased that to 5. You will see we did transfer 10 students from Weisenberg to Northwestern Elementary. 6 were already Northwestern Elementary students that were already dislocated and put in Weisenberg because we didn't have room and other reasons. 2 are current students that were at Weisenberg that we moved to Northwestern Elementary, and 2 new students that we moved to Northwestern Elementary. So that is the composite of 10 students moving from Weisenberg to Northwestern. So when Weisenberg goes from 57 to 53, that is including the 10 we moved. So what that will mean in 5th grade is Northwestern Elementary will have a class size in 5th grade of 74 across 3 sections, which drills out class sizes of 24 and 25. Weisenberg will have 53 across 2 sections, and they will have class sizes of 26 and 27. We do get any new enrollments at Weisenberg from this point forward, those new enrollments will also go to Northwestern Elementary. That sounds like a simple solution. It is not without pain and transportation. So trying to get all of those 10 students, which originally were close to selected students that did not have siblings and were relatively close to the border. But as you add new students, they might be on the other end of the district. And so Art will put a van together and bring all of those students over, but that will be an added expense to bring students from Weisenberg to Northwestern Elementary. The two classes that I would like to talk with you about tonight are, we've had significant enrollments in kindergarten at Northwestern Elementary. So you'll see when we did our final budget presentation, they were at 58. So they are now at 73. That is not moving any children. That is geographically students who belong at Northwestern Elementary. That is kindergarten class sizes of 24 and 25. Similar situation in first grade at Weisenberg. So Weisenberg had 66. I told you last night they were at 74. They had 2 new enrollments today. So as of today, they're at 76. So that's drilling out class sizes of 25 and 26 in first grade. Both of which I think are too high for our youngest learners. Now, that being said, we do not have either one of those positions budgeted to be added. The reason I made the decision to transfer 5th grade students and move them is, one, because we could add 1 class and not 2. And it was I'm gonna say a 1-year issue in terms of transportation. So you're transporting kids across the border for 1 year, and then they will go to middle school. The same thing could be considered for at least kindergarten. The issue is you are now transporting a group of students for 6 years from the wrong geographic area to a different elementary school. And then you get complicated with family fun nights, open houses that are often the same night, and families have kids now either in 2 different buildings, or you have to agree to move the sibling as well, which causes other issues. So I am telling you tonight that there is a very good chance that we will add, even though it is not budgeted, an additional kindergarten at Northwestern Elementary. And if you do the math, that still puts their class sizes higher than Weisenberg. So if you divide Northwestern 73, it still puts them at, I think, 18 and 19, which is still higher than Northwestern or Weisenberg 16 and 17. My elementary principals would disagree with me, but I have the biggest issue with that because of the discrepancy. A kindergarten class with 16 and 17 is very, very different than a kindergarten class with 24 and 25. And you have to remember that class minus kids leaving or going somewhere will always be a big class. So if you can think about the cumulative impact that a kid has in a kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade with class sizes of 16 for 3 years, and the cumulative impact that a student would have in a class of 24 or 25 in kindergarten, but then it'll be that way in 1st, and then it'll be that way in 2nd, minus anything happening. I think it is in our best interest to at least add a section in kindergarten. However, 1st grade is also a problem in terms of class sizes. If I thought, and I told both elementary principals this, if I thought that they were going to stay exactly where they are, there's a chance that I would leave it, but as of yesterday to today, it's already changed by 2 students. We have a month left till school. And unfortunately, kindergarten and 1st grade are ordinarily grades. We get a lot of students and we get a lot of influx in August. So I'm not sure they're gonna stay where they are. That being said, I wanted to bring it to you, one, because the 5th grade, although we've obviously talked to parents, so it's public, we've not talked about it at a board meeting, but also to let you know, there's the potential for us to have to add 2 elementary teachers post-hire at a late date, 1 in kindergarten and 1 in 1st grade at Weisenberg. And as you see, it's not all going the same direction. So it's not like we could do anything else that would solve this problem.
I mean, the one thing you did mention is that Northwestern and Weisenberg generally have a gap in their test scores and their progression, right? And so you would argue that more support of Northwestern is needed, right? So that's another potential benefit of adding of your suggestion at kindergarten level.
It is, but Northwestern also gets additional supports in all the title funding that they do get. So part of the reason for the title funding is to try to balance some of that in staffing and in funding. Now, we are using a portion of the title funding, and that's dual purpose. You know, we did need the 5th grade teacher, but I also don't know that that's going to be a I think it's 80,000 we got extra. I'm not sure that that's not inserted COVID money somewhere. Like, I don't know where the 80,000 came from in terms of the federal money coming through. And so I don't know if we're going to get 80,000 next year. And so the 5th grade was natural, one, because we needed it. And next year, those kids will go to the middle school. I'm most uncomfortable, Todd, with the discrepant inequity difference between the class sizes of 16, 17 and 24, 25.
Yeah, it's
It's big.
huge. And again, knowing there's also a gap in in the levels of those kids coming in, and the fact that we're already providing extra support. And then last year we heard about all these pullouts and there's not enough space to pull them out. And, you know, I just feel like you're in a bad spot with that.
Yeah, I mean, this situation's not good. And if you look at even Weisenberg's kindergarten is not low enough to divide by 2. So ordinarily, if we didn't have the influx, you could take one teacher, although, you know, we pull straws or something for my kindergarten teachers are listening, took a 1 to go from Weisenberg to Northwestern Elementary.
Right.
But you divide that, you just create the same problem there. Now they're at 25 because they're running at 50. So you don't have, it's not low enough that you can decrease the section. And they're our youngest learners, and you see, you know, we were looking at class sizes of 19 and 20. And our class size guidelines are the things, for those of you who don't remember, in parentheses on the left. They're not solid, and you know, we knew we were under in kindergarten and we knew we were over in 5th grade when we did this in May. Like, they're not solid in that we won't violate them if we believe it's necessary. You know, Mrs. Cenobitis asked one question in a previous meeting about 5th grade. I mean, I won't say publicly, but we also take into account not just the numbers, the composite of the kids that are in each of those sections. And like, I won't go into all of that, but that's part of the recommendation of what the composite and challenges of some of the students in particular sections or particular grades, particularly when you go down to 2 sections. Like, kids you might try to separate for behavior reasons, or kids that you try to, you know, differentiate for. You have 2 places to put them. You don't have a lot of sections to put them in. So we did get additional funding in BES, in basic ed. So when Dr. Sosnovic talked about the additional funding in mental health and school safety, physical security, we did get additional money in basic ed. I can talk a little bit about this later or now, whenever you like. As most of you noted, it was the lowest in Lehigh County by a significant amount. That's driven by several things, but we did get additional money in basic ed. I don't know if that's in the base. I mean, I don't know if that's continuing moving forward, but we got additional money in basic ed that could fund those teachers. But right now, I don't have 2 additional teachers budgeted, which is why I'm bringing it to you. So our staffing recommendations from May are 3 teachers different in the addition than what I told you we were budgeting for in May. 1 of which we've already pulled the trigger on, and 2 of which we are very close to pulling. This part of we is very close to pulling the trigger.
As far as the budget impact is concerned, we do have a budget reserve that we can use to cover the cost of adding 2 teachers. What's the availability of teachers? Do we have permanent subs that we can put in until we find
We do
someone?
not. So we will need to post as per our procedures and recruit. It is very difficult to recruit this time of the year because most of the school districts have either completed their hiring or finishing their hiring. So it'll be a challenge for us. Also, if we do hire someone from another school district, most likely they'll be held for 60 days from the day that we hire them. So, you know, we could be looking at October.
Well, so the decision we made a couple of years ago when we were wrestling with the reconfiguration has come back to haunt us again, once again. Had we gone that direction, we wouldn't have this problem. We could just put them all together in one building and we'd have a class size of 20 in the kindergartens. Easily done, but you know, we're living in this decision that we made to accommodate the parents who were involved with inputs to this decision, and we've got a serious problem here. But it's doable, but and how about space for the extra building, extra classroom?
Well, Jill has more than enough space. Marie and I talked, it would probably relocate another teacher and to make room for the kindergarten, because we typically try to keep kindergarten together. But she can relocate another teacher to add a 4th kindergarten at Northwest Sound. Yeah, I can't say, I mean, it's not a great situation, and I can't say that. I mean, we thought it would level out, but I can't, based on what is coming in kindergarten and 1st grade, and they're all good reasons. Like we tracked how many kids are getting back from charter, we tracked how many kids we got back from non-public, and they're all good reasons. Doesn't make the class sizes, particularly at those young grades, any less challenging.
I mean, the charter dollars are coming back within those kids, right?
Yeah, we have 3 charter kids coming back.
Yeah.
You know, it's not in those I don't, I should,
It's not
I
in
don't
those
know if it's in
grades,
those
but
grades,
that's
but
money that's potentially coming back in.
there are 3 charter children coming back, yes. 2 at Weisenberg, last I checked, and 1 at Northwestern Elementary.
That's
15,
half a teacher.
Teacher.
So that's the situation that we're moving in, and right now we're at 123 for kindergarten. And the first grade class is 27. We just graduated 180. We're having classes of 120, and a third, fourth, or fifth are 140.
well, but that was part of the challenge. So if you think about part of the conversation about the unsaid word of elementary configuration, we talked about how to make it sustainable and how we decrease sections in kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and now we're up to like 8th grade. And we did that to keep up with the enrollment decrease. And if you look at those classes of 112 and 120 and 140, they are discrepantly different than 189 and 209. So we don't have more kids. They are inequitably distributed,
Yeah, man.
which is why we were talking about solutions that would put them either in one building. Because even if you think about the solution that was moving lines, that doesn't, you're gonna exacerbate. So say you said tomorrow, which I shall not even say this on the media, that we're gonna move that line. You help kindergarten, but then you exacerbate first grade. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not even moving in one direction was my point in saying
Yeah.
that. But if you do take all 5 kindergarten sections, like a kindergarten center, we talked about that a number of times through that, and you divide them, you now have class sizes of 20, and you don't have to add a teacher. You can divide by 6 instead of dividing by 7, which is what I'm recommending now. Right now, you don't really have any other choices other than to add a teacher if you don't like those classes at 24 and 25. There's not really another option.
Well, that's where you're headed, right?
Yeah, that's the recommendation, because 1, you're uprooting kids, and 2, even to create an issue where, we asked for volunteers in 5th grade, and we got some criticism, like, why didn't you ask for volunteers? Okay, so Jill put a survey together, asked for volunteers, 0 people respond, which is exactly what I thought would be the response. Nobody wants to volunteer. So, but we asked for volunteers to see if there was anybody who voluntarily wanted to move, because some of the families that are moving are not happy with the decision.
So you're saying a Northwestern entering kindergarten, there isn't volunteers to move to the Weisenberg?
We didn't ask that.
Okay.
We asked 5th grade.
Alright.
We did not ask for kindergarten. I would suspect you would get very few, but that would just be my suspicion. That would just be my suspicion. I'm saying when we added the 5th grade and we started calling families, one of the questions was, why didn't you ask for volunteers? And I said, because, and this is the don't ask if you're not gonna do it. So you ask people, do you wanna move? They say no. And then you call them 2 weeks later and you say you're moving anyway. And they say, why'd you ask me? So that's always the backhanded side of asking for volunteers. So we did, we asked for volunteers to make sure we didn't have any, and we got all of the responses, and there was not one person that said they wanted to move. So then we did move people and tell them their placement for the 22-23 school year was Northwestern Elementary, and that we would provide transportation. So Art will put together, I think it's gonna be a van, which is a different issue and a different day with no drivers and issues in terms of staffing and transportation, which is why, like, it sounds asinine, but the only other thing you could do is go, Art, he should close his ears when I say this, Art, we're taking 10 kindergartners from Northwestern Elementary, taking to Weisenberg. We're gonna take 6 first graders from Weisenberg, you're gonna move them to Northwestern Elementary, you're gonna take 10 5th graders and move them to Northwest L. Like, none of that is efficient. So you're worried about finances, and you're worried about sustainability, and you're worried about adding class sizes, and how much money are we gonna spend in transportation doing all that?
Yeah, I mean, you'd need what, 8 to 10 kindergartners to move. I don't know where they all live, right? Unless they're all clustered in one area and don't have siblings,
Or siblings coming.
right?
And then, like I said, it runs into problems with all of the evenings the elementaries have, and that a parent who has call it a first grader at Weisenberg and a 5th grader at Northwest L, we have to make sure all those are on different nights so families can go to both of them. So I
So
don't,
what's, I guess the question here is if we were gonna move forward in 2 weeks, because we can't vote on it tonight, Are
I'm
you
fine
moving
moving forward. We're gonna have to move, I am going to have to make a decision to move forward before 2
Should've
weeks,
been-
like talking tomorrow or the day after. I was not as sold on first grade until Jill got 2 more today at 76,
And
because
we're not done with first grade.
I don't know that we're done with either one of them. In terms of new enrollments, you mean? I don't know that either one of them are done with the number of enrollments that we've got. I mean, Marina has 40 new enrollments
That's crazy.
and 1 disenrollment over the summer.
I'm just curious, where does this compare to where it was forecasted? Do we have that?
I can pull that,
Can you pull that? so that
well,
we
but
can
it wasn't distributed, remember, so they were estimating, and I can pull up they did a moderate estimate, they did a conservative estimate. They were all saying around 122 or 130, 1 year was 132. But it's the distribution, so the numbers aren't, I don't think that off from the forecast. It's the distribution across the buildings, because one of the years was 122 and one of the years was 123. I'll pull it up, I could find it. When Decision Insight did the distribution of grades, because that year they weren't forecasting the buildings, they were saying it's coming in they surveyed all your 5-year-olds. Remember, they said it was only valuable because those kids are now born the next 5 years. And 1 year it was 122 and 1 year it was 132, which is not that off. That first grade, what's at 140? It's the distribution that's way off. When Jill's has 50 and Maria's 73, that's a full class of 23 5-year-olds.
I still think we have the dust settling from COVID and all these other outside interferences. And the reconfiguration was before COVID came, and then we had COVID for 2 years or 3 years, and now we're back into this again. And, you know, I don't think we're done with reconfiguration, in my opinion. That's the only, in my view, operational change that makes sense. But anyway, this is where we are today. And we've got some challenges ahead in this class size, enrollment, and staffing that we have to address. And at this point, there's no board action required. This is not
Unless you tell me you
a budget
absolutely,
issue. This is just you're operating, you're doing what has to be done as a superintendent.
yeah, I mean, unless the board tells me we absolutely don't support that and you kind of need to deal with it, and deal with the class size, which is not my recommendation. We will likely at least add in kindergarten and potentially first grade, as early as tomorrow.
Any
With adding, are you
questions?
still gonna have to move kids?
We have moved 5th grade students,
I meant
yes.
with the first kindergarten first, with adding a section
Well,
on where you have to.
Not right now. Not unless you get a lot more kids, not right now you don't have to move any kindergartners or first grade students, but you have to recognize if Northwestern Elementary continues to get more,
Mhm.
she's already, even if you divide that by 4,
Mhm.
higher classes, just not by such a discrepant amount, 18 and 19, if she continues to get more, what we talked about doing is from whatever date, any new enrollments go to the other building. The problem is they're located wherever, and then it of course creates a transportation concern from Art to get them over here. Did you have something else?
I have.
You have go ahead, you have it,
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about it, thank you. I'll go
Yeah,
look it up.
so Future Link was the one that actually
thank
did the projections, and this was the February 2019 board presentation. They projected with the current attendance boundaries in 22-23 Northwestern Elementary would have 86 kids. Weisenberg would have 71. That's in kindergarten. Now, the thing you need to realize with that is they based that on live birth data because those kids were born at the time in which they made those projections. So I would suspect at that point, because we see this bubble coming in, it's going to be fairly accurate. So in Mrs. Holman's assessment, I would say I would probably anticipate a couple more kids coming our way. I don't know about 86, it seems high, but if we do, goodness, but yeah.
I mean, you get 13 more, to answer your question, Dr. Hunsicker. You get 13 more and you have 86 and now you're divided it by 4. It's 21.5 is still, I'll say, okay. My kindergarten teacher will not agree with that, but it's still in the realm of being okay. Even if you got the 86. So I think that's what you have to consider. Right now, no, you won't have to move any kindergarten or first grade students. I don't know what's gonna happen for the next month in terms of enrollment. And it is always particular in kindergarten. I said this before, people register their students really late. Or they register dually and then they decide kind of thing. Now, that happened more when we had half-day kindergarten than it has when we have since we put full-day kindergarten in, but it still happens a good amount that, and more Northwestern Elementary gets enrollments in kindergarten pretty late.
The only reason too, I think that we may see additional students into kindergarten that I know of families that have held their kids from coming to school due to COVID too. So they just held them a year. They didn't want to bring them back masked in an environment that we had them, and so again, probably a high probability we'll pick up a couple more kindergarteners at least this year.
Okay,
Adamantly opposed if we need to make the decision to add a kindergarten at Northwestern Elementary and a first grade at Weisenberg in the hopes that we can find a teacher. Teach those. Do you want to know what was in basic ed or you don't want to talk about that? So in basic ed, I mentioned it earlier, we got an additional $293,000 and the 132 in mental health and the 132 in physical security. As I said to the board in the email, we were the lowest increase in basic ed in special ed in Lehigh County in terms of percentage at about 5.23 or 5.1%. I did do some calculations, which are pretty boring, but it essentially comes down to the calculation that they use to determine the new funding is driven by our household median income, which even through COVID has increased by a significant amount, meaning people continue to be employed in the district, people continue to make more money than they did. On average, the median household income has gone up. Our poverty has gone down, our enrollment has gone down, and they believe our ability for local taxpayers to pay based on the household median income, based on this formula, is how they distributed the new basic ed money. And so if you look overall, our EL population, our charter school population, our concentrations of poverty, our median household income are all working in the wrong direction, then feed you more money.
but it's
So-
the right direction, but it's.
It's the right direction, like your income's going up, your charter schools are going down, your poverty is going down. It's all the right direction, but not those formulas that feed you additional dollars when they run the new money through basic ed. So we got an additional basic ed and special ed of 293,977. Which it pales in comparison to some districts, even in their level up funding. And I have the formula if anybody would like to be bored about how we got there. But I had to figure out why we didn't get what I thought we should get.
So, the affluence of Northwestern Indiana School District is affecting the subsidies that we get from the state for funding. And, that's the way the rules are. Well, thank you for going through that. I thought it would be valuable to just get us back on track here. First meeting for the school year and see where we are with the enrollment and the budget.
Well, and on behalf of our principals and teachers, thank you for doing what's right for kids. It's important, but not always nice and friendly, but thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, stand by. Next is under policy. Yeah, first reading, we have a couple of policy topics.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Under policy first reading, we have two. I will speak to 903 and I'll pass it off to Mrs. Matiko for 339. Policy 903, this policy has been updated to reflect changes in recent case law regarding someone making public comment to identify themselves by stating their township versus address. This is a practice that we actually shifted to in the near recent past as well. Other minor changes were in there regarding calling it open meetings versus public. But the policy is before you. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Questions on the first one? Okay.
just 339. This policy's been in place since February 2016, when it was last reviewed. This policy on your agenda has been updated since this morning, and it's a work in progress. We will be working towards getting final legal review on this policy, but our goal is to have you approve it in 2 weeks. So we're in compliance with the no pay procedures that we discussed in April. So we're working to fine tune it and we'll ask for your approval in 2 weeks. So no, there'll be a few more tweaks.
So we're just, the essence of the policy will not change, it's just some wordsmithing that
That's
has to be
correct.
done
Yep.
to make it readable.
Yep.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, the only thing I noticed, I think, like, you're probably gonna edit it, that section you crossed out in red, I think there's like a period or comma, or there's something missing.
Yeah, there's a couple tweaks we need to
Okay.
put in there, so thank you for that.
okay.
Any questions?
And, no policies to rescind, second reading, I'm sorry, food service and lunch money.
I've received no additional updates on those. They were reviewed in June
Okay,
and they're ready for your approval come 2 weeks.
good. Any comments or questions at this time? On the second reading? Then we'll move into, there are no policies to rescind. We'll move into the use of facilities update. I think, Jason, are you with us tonight to address this?
Yes, sir, I am. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay, excellent. Yeah, this is just standard. Every so often I take a look at the rates that we charge our groups to use our facilities. I am not recommending any changes to our group ones and group twos. Our group ones are basically our school sponsored organizations. Our group twos are our community organizations such as our booster clubs and our NYA, our youth wrestling programs, etc. But groups 3 and 4, I am recommending an increase. I did some research with local schools. We were a little behind the 8 ball. And the essence of this, especially with the group 4s, which really have no affiliation to the school, is if you're going to rent your facilities, make it worth your while. Maybe it's basically another revenue source, because the amount of time we put in to rent those is sometimes significant. So nothing major there. The only other add there, if you see AV personnel at the bottom, some of our equipment now, we've gotten some nice equipment through some of our building projects, and we don't want those run by, some layman. So we'd like really our people or a contracted person that we use for our events to run those, just to make sure that equipment lasts. So pretty self-explanatory. Again, this does not impact any of our community organizations, but it does impact people such as, let's say, a dance recital group that wants to come in. What I have realized is a lot of schools after COVID, they didn't get back into the business of renting to those type of folks or those type of organizations. I'm not recommending that at this point, because I do believe we could, if they do want to use it, it's there. If it's sitting idle, it might be an opportunity to make a couple extra bucks for us for this.
Jason, can you re-describe what is group 3 and what is group 4 again? You mentioned 4,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, so group 3 is basically your YMCA, your local churches, your theater groups, your choral groups that don't necessarily, it's not all Northwestern Lehigh community folks. And then your group 4s are really your for-profit organizations that really, again, have no real association, or it's not purely Northwestern Lehigh folks coming in to use the facility. Those are like your dance groups, your dance recital folks. That's what we see in group 4 a lot. We don't really have any more churches anymore, but like the churches and like the churches would be a good example of the only group 3s we really had over the past couple of years. But again, we don't have them anymore.
okay. Any questions for Jason? Okay, thank you, Jason, for being with us and explaining that.
No problem. Thank you.
Action on this in 2 weeks.
so just as a reminder, that is attached to a policy. So it's under policy because policy 707 is use of facilities. This is the last structure, the fee structure page.
Under operations, Brandywine Transportation. Art.
Yeah, this is an update for the board. I'm diligently trying to get this documentation from Brandywine. We need to get an updated contract because our contract has expired and an updated fee schedule that we typically do every year. I'm not sure what goes on in the office over there. I've contacted several times, talked to people. As soon as I get it, I will post it. But I just wanted to give you an update because typically we will post it right now for approval at the next board meeting. If I have it in time, it will be posted at the next meeting.
And I made a decision to leave it on because they will start transporting the end of August, and if we hold it till September, you won't have approved the rates. I wondered, and shows are, I wondered if they were trying to come up with the rates because of the impacts with fuel. Are they trying to come up with, how do they come up with a daily van rate or a daily rate for Brandywine? Because that's what they've previously given us, a daily rate to drive the vehicle. So he's asked a few times, so I left it on. I'm hoping we'll have it for the board meeting so you can approve it, so it can be in place before we actually ask them to transport, because otherwise they'll essentially transport from the end of August through your meeting in September, and you'll be retroactively, and I don't know what the rate will be.
Yeah,
Are you
they
still,
agreed to do the 3 runs that they did last year again, so they had agreed to that in verbal
Okay,
commitment.
we have the commitment then.
It's just a matter, yeah,
So it's for those 3 runs plus extracurricular, is that what they?
just the 3 runs is
Just the
all,
3 runs,
that's all we
okay.
use, unless something comes up that we need their help in there. They usually don't have drivers either, so.
Is there an alternative that you should source or at least get a bid going in case they come back with some exorbitant fee? Because I feel like you're gonna be helped.
Yeah, I mean, we have to go out to bid for that. We're just trying to extend the contract, which is why we're using them, but almost certainly, nobody would want to bid just 3 months. Every other contractor has wanted everything historically.
Questions?
If I get it before the board meeting, I'll let you know what the rate is, and board report, so you know what it is.
They've always been fair with us.
They've been
in the
fair.
past.
I'm just think the fuel is probably throwing them for a,
But
how do
I'm
I
not
price
sure,
this out for the year?
I don't think that's the issue, because we pay for the fuel.
That's true.
But I think the issue is they don't have drivers, and they're in that same boat as we are, because we've asked them multiple times to do some extracurriculars. And I'm not sure that they have the drivers to sit in the seats that they agreed to, and that's why I think that they're pushing it off.
All
We'll
right,
see.
So hopefully we'll have it.
under district finances, Edmonton agreement here. Troy?
Yes. Okay, the ad minimum agreement. This agreement will allow us to continue to use Apex Learning curriculum for our Digital Academy students. This provides them with AP level courses. Apex was recently purchased by Amentum. That's the reason for the change in the contract. So essentially, it's just a change in the name. This is a recurring item for us.
Questions? And Andrea, I think, is with us for the next 4 items. Yeah, let's do Portnoy. I'm sorry, jump ahead.
Andrew, hang on 1 second. 5.02 is Portnoy, on behalf of Christy Steigerwell. If you have any questions, I'll certainly ask her. My understanding is this is a required agreement that the law changed. There is a little description that is in admin content that we didn't have public about a fee that will need to be charged, and that we passed on to the property owner for delinquent taxes. So we have had a longstanding relationship with Portnoy, and this is just an update and an amendment to their current agreement, which is required
Okay,
for delinquent taxes.
any questions? It's just a renewal and a change because of the law. Change.
Sorry about that, Andrea.
No problem. So the CLIU TransPerfect agreement, the board did approve this on May 11th. The difference is 13 cents for rate, that's per minute, an increase of 13 cents per minute for the new contract. This was submitted to us just after your approval in May, so unfortunately I have to bring it back to you for reapproval. Nothing else changed in the contract. The Whitehall Copley agreement and the Behavioral Health Associates agreement, they're routine yearly agreements that we coordinate with Whitehall to place students there, and the same for behavioral health. They both support our special ed students and regular ed students for out-of-district placements. And 506, that agreement in lieu of FAPE, we had previously talked about this. It's a very similar agreement to a situation with a student, with the same student from last year. If you have any questions about any of those, I can certainly take them.
Any questions for Andrea? I don't think so.
So that's a 10% price increase on that TransPerfect agreement.
13 cents a minute.
Yeah, if I'm interpreting it right, it's about 10% increase.
78 cents an hour. Yeah, why do they do it by minute instead of hour?
So when we have them translate IDEA documents, it could be something very minimal that we just need a few minutes instead of the hour. So I believe that's why they do it. This is consortium pricing through the IU. So every district has a very similar contract. We do actually save by using the consortium pricing as well. So it's actually much cheaper than if we would contract with an agency on our own.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Andrea.
Oh, you're welcome.
State police agreement, Art?
This is the agreement that Chief facilitated for the bus patrol in order to issue the fines for 8-way violations. In order for them to facilitate it with our state police barracks, we had to sign this agreement with them.
Are those devices on the buses yet?
They just come out and finished up last week. So we're gonna do a media, we're gonna get with Dr. Sosnovic and do a media, let's set up some version. I know Kate wants to set up, which is bus patrol. They want to send stuff out to parents and families and all that of how it works and what it does and where the money goes.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions about the cameras on the buses and agreement with the state police? And we'll move to community education classes. I guess before you do that.
Yeah, I do. I'm filling in actually for Mrs. Stetzel, but this is a routine item where we approve our community education classes. You'll see the list of classes attached. There are a few additions to community education this year. The MELT method is an exercise program that is typically used to enhance mobility and stability and reduce chronic pain. So if you experience any of those, I suggest you sign up for this community class.
Okay. Is it at no cost to the district?
Correct.
They're coming in for a board session to tell all of you.
We should all go to a class. Let's pick a yoga class.
Yeah.
Team building.
You're out there?
I'll do it. I'm in.
We in? Let's do it.
That'll be our board retreat.
Yeah.
All right.
I just think I'm joking. Either that or a Spartan burpee session.
Yoga. Yoga.
I'm very good at that. That sounds
All right, next one is the Title I agreement with intermediate unit. Troy.
Yeah, this agreement allows the CLIU to provide services to a student in need of academic assistance at St. John Newman School who would otherwise attend Northwestern Elementary. As part of federal Title I program, we are required to provide non-public schools equitable services as part of the requirements. That child would be ours. He's going to St. John Newman, so we need to provide that service.
Okay, any comments, questions? And the Berkheimer resolution, another ongoing thing.
Yep, that is a routine item. You have a resolution with Berkheimer. If you certainly have any questions, I will take them.
And we'll move into the reports. Anything you want to point out in the reports?
No, I do have my cheat sheet notes from Christy. If you
So
have any,
Christie's doing all the reports now?
Christy has been doing the reports, yes. Obviously the bills and things are Samantha, I believe, on here, but all the monthly recaps and things, she is on call if I need it. And she gave me the cheat sheets.
Yeah, I want to ask this again. The amount of reports that are on here.
This is unusual because of not having July.
Yeah, we have 2 months on
Uh-huh.
on some of them, but I think we should keep reviewing these reports that are being developed so that we're not doing anything over and above what is necessary for other agencies to report to. I mean, are there anything,
Well,
is there
there's a-
anything in here that is specifically for the board?
Yeah, most of them. Yeah, if there are reports on there that are not valuable, the majority of reports on here, besides like essentially you paying the bills, I mean, I'll ask Christy that specifically, but the majority of these reports were created for one or board members who asked it, so like that monthly recap. I think it was Mr. Morrison who liked just having a short snapshot, so like most of these were created and thus continued because of something you
Yeah.
like.
That's what happened. An individual board member would want a picture that he can understand, and then it just perpetuates itself.
Oh, yeah, it keeps going.
And so that we've been doing for years
I
and
mean,
years.
even the one procurement report, so that's not required, but I think it was Mr. Toll who annually wanted to see or monthly wanted to see like the procurement.
Yes,
report.
Maybe
maybe
we're-
worth understanding, like if this, it's like, hey, these are easy, they're already set up, she pushes the button versus, no, she's spending
Okay, well, why don't
4
I,
hours creating a
Yeah.
report.
if you would like that, I would rather Christy respond to
Yeah.
that. So I will ask her to be prepared to respond to
Yeah.
that. And she can tell you which ones are system generated reports and which ones she's creating.
And we
I
can
think you
take a
can
board
see
survey and
Yeah.
see which ones we are looking
It's good.
at.
idea.
I like that.
Yeah, like if you look at the reports, the ones that are saying condensed board report are the system generated reports, but these narratives are created,
Yeah.
I believe, by her.
Yeah.
But give her a second to wrap her head around that, and then I will have her be prepared, and then we can come to a consensus about what it looks
See
like.
if we can
moving forward.
reduce the time going into this.
Yeah, okay.
All right, any other questions about reports? Okay. You want to get into the,
Well, the only thing Mr. Delger and I talked about, he had a question on the condensed board report where it said we had $3.2 million remaining. You have to remember a couple things. One, we haven't paid all of our teachers yet, so they get paid through the summer. So all of the payroll, all the way up until the end of August, is not out of that yet. Plus, we still haven't finished reconciling all of the June bills. The other thing that Christy and I are trying to figure out is if you look at the revenue report, there are several categories in the revenue report that are significantly off. Meaning we are $1.3 million right now short in our retirement reimbursement. Now, part of that is because we would have just made one of the last retirement payments, and it's a reimbursement. So some of that is yet to come. The same thing with Social Security. So retirement was like $1.3 million off at this point. That's not unusual for this time of year. But if you look, it will show that we are short approximately $3 million in revenue. So right now, it's about a $200,000 gap. It will get bigger as some of that revenue comes in, particularly the reimbursements for Social Security and the reimbursements for retirement. Those are two big ticket items. ESSER is also another revenue source that was a big ticket item in terms of a variance. And so that is not all finished yet. So when we certainly finish it all up in terms of how much we have remaining at the end of the year, we will have some remaining. We certainly won't be over budget, but it won't be the 3.2 million that is showing on the end of that report.
Okay.
But we'll get you a final report, obviously, when everything is back to 21, 22. And I think Christy's listening because she just answered me. Condensed board summary, the revenue report, the expenditure report are all from CSAU. So all the ones without charts, she said, come from the reports. But I'll let her come and you can figure out then, we can figure out then what you want moving forward.
okay. So we're okay for the end of the year. It's just not a
I think-
$3 million underspent budget.
Yeah, or $3 million shorts in revenue, because that would equally be a problem. I don't want to be either. I don't want to have only 200,000 left, but I don't want to be short 3 million in revenue either. So I just think some of that's a cash flow issue, and remembering that our teachers get paid through the summer and they won't get their last check until the end of August.
Okay, that moves us into old business. We don't have any old or new business on the agenda. Is there any old or new business? Any board member?
I just wanted to ask for an update. So it's our favorite time of year in terms of busing and transportation. If you could provide us how it's going, just so we can anticipate what that communication might or could look like.
Honestly, it's going very well, as far as the routing component of it. We're in the phase where we're checking the runs and verifying that the students are routed. And we have their trainers are going through the runs and modifying adjustments and You can't have you have to have a door side here, or you can't make a left-hand turn on that road. So they're going through all that. You have to make those changes so that when it goes out to the parents, it minimizes the amount of changes. But I will tell you that from the time we release it to parents, we typically get anywhere from 50 to 100 parent requested changes. So then those all have to get processed. So as far as that goes, as far as what it looked like last year was an anomaly. We're in a much better place. I think Dr. Sosnovic would concur with that. The data is talking to each other, it's transferring. We'll certainly do some spot checks before we release the parents. I'm not certain when data is going out yet. I don't think that decision has been decided. My guess would probably be a couple of weeks yet, but as soon as it goes out, it'll be accurate and verified.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other old business or new business? All right. Then we are back to courtesy of the floor. I'd like to address the board who's with us tonight. Thank you for being with us. And Becky, it looks like you'll make it 10 o'clock.
Don't jinx it yet.
However, we do
Let's-
have an executive session immediately following this meeting, so stick around for that. Thank you. And
Motion to adjourn.
motion by Mr.
Second.
Weiser, second by Dr. Hunsaker. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.